So there's a quote that I want to talk about today, and it comes from a Danish philosopher named Søren Kierkegaard. He lived in the 1800s, long before modern psychology or mindfulness, but he had a deep understanding of something that we still wrestle with and talk a lot about on the podcast, and it's the tension between reflection and living. And the quote is, "Life can only be understood backwards, but must be lived forwards." He believed that meaning isn't found in the moment itself, but in the reflection that follows. We live forward through uncertainty, actions, and sometimes chaos, and only later do we begin to see how it all fits together. And I think we have countless examples of that. And I thought it'd be fun to talk about that a little bit today. So I'll repeat the quote. Life can only be understood backwards, but must be lived forwards.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think about that?
Yeah, totally agree. I mean, there's a reason why we have that, that other saying, right? Hindsight is 20/20, because as we look back, we everything seems to make perfect sense, right? How many times do people lose a job and then they are reflecting upon that and say, well, it was really a blessing in disguise, right? So we kind of like intuitively understand that. And just before this, we were talking about how so many people are kind of too busy trying to make sense of life, right, in the moment. And the classic example that I think is just funny and so relatable is, the spouse doesn't take out the trash, or maybe we don't take out the trash, or we don't do some sort of chore or something totally inconsequential. Yet we kind of then try to make meaning from that. Well, they didn't take out the trash because, they're just trying to, get back at me for what I did last week or whatever, right? And we spend so much time in that moment trying to make sense of, why did this person say that thing to me? How often do we think back and we review the play of the day, or like what the conversations were like, and we kind of think, what did they mean by that, right? And I don't think it's a healthy thing to do. I don't think it's a healthy thing to do to kind of look back in a short-term kind of way, like the day or the now, and try to make sense of everything, because it's impossibly complex. And so I think as people reflect over the past years or months or however long in the past, I think things seem a little bit more clear, and you can kind of see the path that you were on at the time. But it is helpful for one to kind of stay present and disregard some of the brain's tendency to be more narrative focused.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, too much reflection is not a good thing, right? If you want to move forward in life, spending your entire time reflecting will lead you to depression and anxiety, right? We'll come up with the wrong answer. Well, I should have done this. I wish it had gone that way. But if you just live, even in this uncertainty, and continuously take action, like we talk about all the time, and just continuously are living, moving forward, and then look back, you'll find that you were on the path the whole time. And you could have, yes, all the different outcomes were there. There always were, and they always will be. But ultimately, you chose one. You went that direction. You said what you said. You did what you did. They did what they did. They said what they said. And now here we are. But if you spend all your time just sitting reflecting, I think this is what he was talking about, was like how it's just this battle between not being reflective at all, right? No self-awareness. And then this other end of the spectrum, which can almost hold you hostage, right? Being reflective, so incredibly reflective all the time. Well, if I do this, it'll end up like it happened last time, and that last time was so bad, and all these things, instead of just saying, life is lived moving forward. Okay, we're going to move forward, right? And I think that's why journaling becomes so powerful, at least for me, right? Like, I do feel as though, I think I told the story that, like, I journaled for a year without writing anything bad, just because I was afraid to put it down. But ultimately, when I started journaling and just saying, this is how I saw the day, I was able to say, okay, then this is over, done, reflected, put away. And I think a lot of people struggle with this. I do. I think a lot of people spend a lot of time laying in bed at night, essentially reflecting on things they could have said, ways that they could have gone, stuff they shouldn't have eaten, all of these choices that they made each day.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny you bring that up about the journaling too, because I was talking with a client the other day, and they had put off journaling. They were kind of people who did relatively consistently journal, and they had a couple major life events that they are perceiving in the now as negative, and they didn't want to journal about that, and they had other things that they wanted to journal about, but like they wanted to get through the negative-esque journaling first before they could get to the more recent things. And so they were just kind of like sharing with me like, oh, I finally caught up on my journaling. Like I processed some of those like more hurtful things, and now I'm caught up. And I thought that was kind of interesting that their mind kind of worked like, okay, I have to process the older things and like in an order that is chronological almost, and you're kind of you're saying that, yeah, I mean it is helpful to kind of look back and write things out, how it actually happened and what it actually felt like, because I think the brain likes that. I think it likes to understand objectively what is happening versus. And maybe it also likes the subjective narrative stuff too, and that's where the balance comes into play, because they've done plenty of studies where they look at people journaling about hardships, right? And they know that a little journaling on hardships is good. A lot of journaling on a hardship is harmful. It will actually set people back. They'll become more depressed, more anxious, because they're stuck in that narrative, and they're stuck trying to create meaning from something that perhaps had no meaning at all, no greater purpose.
Yeah. I mean, it's essentially the same concept, right? Like a little reflection, great. Too much reflection, it's not great for anybody. Interestingly enough, you brought up the neuroscience of it all. As we distance ourselves through time on any event, any emotional event, right? Let's say it's a good one. We'll just go with a good one for now, right? It's your birthday party that you had when you were, I don't know, I'm 40, so I'll go with my 30th birthday party, right? So it's 13 years ago. My brain, what my brain will do when I try to recall that is it will actually give me the memory and the emotion, but it won't bring the emotion back exactly as it was, and it won't bring the memory back exactly as it was. It actually files both of those two things in two different places. So when you're going through like a traumatic event, let's say that you're going through like a sad one, like it could bring back the sadness more extreme than the memory. It could remember it worse than it was, or it could remember it better than it was. It's not, we don't know why it does it that way, but that's over a period of time. That's as we distance ourselves from any event. So one thing to remember for all of us that go through life and have these challenges, it's all about staying consistent, right? When you are in these challenging times, I wasn't going to talk about this, but I was just talking with a friend that is going through a very challenging time. And one thing I always admired about them is their consistency when things are good, right? When things are good, they're consistent. They're in the gym. They're doing their work. They're always very like responding in a consistent way. I love to talk to them because I kind of know what I'm going to get from them. Well, they're down right now, and I could see that their consistency has gone. They're grasping, they're trying things, they're looking for this answer, they're looking for that answer. And they've thrown that consistency out the window because they know when things are good, things will change. But now that things are bad, they feel like they'll never change. They feel like they're stuck. And they've decided that consistency, although it has served them so well, is not the answer to the problem that they're working with now. interesting to me.
Yeah. Some people can remain. I think it's a little bit of a skill, right? Like to remain consistent in your own self-care through whatever times it is. But yeah, I think the whole topic of like reflection, like too little reflection versus too much reflection, is very interesting to me. I think that's one of the my main criticisms over certain people engaging in like a therapeutic process, like talking with a therapist. And this is stuff that's like, I guess, a little bit more newer. People are starting to kind of try to figure out where the line is, and I think it's different for everyone, and I think it's really complicated. But some people love to latch on to the narrative and talk about it and make it part of their being and their identity. And I see that obviously like in regards to like eating disorders. People would say like eating disorders are a nutritional deficit, which yes, eating disorders are a psychological kind of thing. Sure, eating disorders are genetic. You kind of acquire this genetically. Sure, they're nurtured. Sure, they're natured. Sure, they're neuro. It has to do with their neuroscience. Sure, all of that is true. But I think what is most true about it for many people is that it is an identity-based disorder. And so you might be surprised that if you haven't talked with people who are, say, hyper restrictive, like anorexia, you might be surprised to hear that most of them know that they need to eat, and most of them know that they're doing harmful things, and most of them are hyper aware, more aware than you even are of eating and self-care and the information, right? The common response for people when they talk with these people or they think about it, they're just like, well, you just need to eat. Okay.
That's like saying relax.
Right. They know that. They know that. So why is it that they continue the behaviors? Well, I mean, it's very clear to me and even them that they are identified. That's who they are, right? They think they see it that way. That's who I am. I'm the person who, not to say that, they always say I'm a person with anorexia or whatever, although obviously that is part of the identity, but their behaviors are so enmeshed with who they are that they kind of like it, right? It's safe to them, it's familiar, it's comfortable, and they continue on the path. The other things impacted, the genetic, the nutritional, the nature, the nurture, all of that do impact their consistency with those behaviors, or maybe their propensity to even engage in the behaviors to begin with. But I do find it interesting that the more I see and work with these folks, the more that it is very clear to me that it is an identity-based disorder. And, then I see that presenting through all people struggling with anything that they're struggling with. We all kind of have identity-based issues, especially in the world that we live in now. And I think that's crafted upon probably too many narratives, too much reflection that is not healthy.
Sure. Imagine a world where you haven't developed yourself yet. We got to live in, I actually just read something the other day. I am within the 3 years, 2 years before and 2 years after, they say that I am the group that got to grow up analog and live digital. So like we didn't have phones that were capable of reaching the internet until I was like 24. So social media came out in 2002, 2005, something like that, but now, so I didn't have to, all my reflection was based on just the way I saw the world, just the interactions I had individually and as a person. I couldn't just flip open my phone and see, oh my God, I'm not like these people. I'm not like those people. I'm not like this. I'm not like that. It was just simply, okay, yeah, I probably shouldn't have said that, or I probably shouldn't have done that. Now, imagine you're a younger person and you lay your head on the pillow and you go, oh my God, I'm not in a family that is, has all the millions of dollars, or I'm not this social media influencer, or I'm not this, I'm not that. It's like, I can't even imagine how many opportunities you would have to have an identity crisis, an identity challenge.
Well, I think we have this like ingrained hypersensitivity to our own identity. And I think it's supernatural for then us to think about, well, how do I fit in more? How do I be better? How do I do all the things that make me like or not like this person that I'm comparing myself to? I think that's also why you have those, maybe before it was kind of at certain ages, people have that like midlife crisis, which is an identity crisis, as you say, right? You hit whatever, 40, 45, 50, sorry.
How old?
40, 43. You hit exactly 43 and you have an identity crisis. I think some people have that in mid-20s. I think that's super common, mid-20s, mid to late 20s, and then probably, between 40 and 50, or, between 40 and 55 perhaps. And they say, well, I zoomed out a bit and now I'm comparing, I look at all these other people. I had 26 years. I had 43 years, and here's what I did compared to wherever else, right? And there's probably some neurological basis for that. Like I think at 44 there was something that kind of like changes in the brain. I can't recall it accurately enough, but you can go home and look that up. At 44 years old, people become more aware of their mortality for whatever reason. So.
Well, good news for me is I've been immature my whole 43 years, so I'm hoping to push that off for a few more years.
Yeah. But 26, 27, 28, super common as well, right? I don't know what that is, but I think that's more like anecdotal. I just see that as I work with people. It's everyone seems to have a big life change in those years. But I think that's supernatural. But now, I can't imagine being 12 years old and having these kinds of identity being front and center. And it is. And this is why, I'm seeing so many young males in particular who just have these like obsessions with that was never there before, with same thing, body, eating, no carbs and this and that. And it's like, it's really sad. We're not made for that.
Yeah. I think there's too many inputs. I think it's very clear to me now that there's just too many inputs for me, even for me at 43, and I can't even begin to understand what it must look like to be 12 or 13 and just having so many inputs. And even if you were to police that out and say, okay, well, you're not gonna do these X, Y, and Z. Like you're just gonna go to school and then be surrounded with all of the inputs, with all the kids that have all the inputs. And it's like, that's gotta be, who knows, maybe life can only be lived forward, right? And reviewed backwards. Maybe they'll get the opportunity to say in 5, 10, 18 years to say, man, that helped me evolve to here, right? Now I can handle all that stuff. That's small potatoes for me. I recognize what's fact and fiction. I recognize what's fake and what's not. And now look how much further advanced I am. Maybe that's something that we could hope for and wish for.
Yeah.
And as we discussed, the brain will make adjustments. It will learn and it will evolve and it'll help them and us always. Bring back hindsight, and hindsight is, as you said, hindsight's 20/20. So maybe I'm just wishing and hoping for something that's going to happen anyways. But there we go. There's reflection.
Yeah. I think it's super important for us to try and understand when we're constructing a narrative versus when we're just kind of experiencing the now, right? And I've been thinking about this idea. It's been kind of like ringing in my head a little bit that it seems that our perspective has some level of zoom on it at all times, right? Like a camera lens. Like you're either super zoomed in or you're super zoomed out, and you can be every every tick of Zoom you can kind of experience each and every moment in, right? And so, for example, you being super zoomed into experience in the moment would be very akin, I think, to like a flow state, right? So you're rock climbing, you're super zoomed in. You're like you're one for one, right? As far in as you can go, you're in the moment. There is nothing else happening because you are locked into the moment. And those I think are often optimal. Like they would call those peak experiences, to be rock climbing, to be in jujitsu, to be playing a concert, to be giving a public speaking kind of speech or whatever, right? Those would be optimal experiences. Although I think very obvious to say and to think about that can't happen forever, right? You can't always be super zoomed in, even if that's the ideal. It's not possible, and it might not be, in fact, the best for you over the long term. If you're always in flow, you're not necessarily thinking about the future at all. I mean, you'd be running yourself into the ground, right? Like, I'm just gonna climb this mountain until I die, I guess it would be like being too zoomed in, right? So there's that. And then there would be hyper zoomed out, like the most zoomed out you can imagine would be understanding that we're on a rock floating in space, the cosmic level, right? Like almost everything is so inconsequential there. Like there's so little observable meaning almost.
Nothing matters.
Yeah, at least to us, right? Like you can say like, oh, there's greater meaning, but it's just so hard to ascertain, right? So it's beyond our comprehension, so almost zero meaning. And then of course, like maybe you could be zoomed into the day, right? And I think a lot of people who are living day by day, week by week, experience this like being in survival mode almost. Survival mode isn't necessarily flow. You're worrying. You're worrying like, okay, how am I going to get through this day? I have a really like crappy day ahead of me, and I don't know how I'm going to buy food later tonight, and I don't know how I'm going to survive the week. I got rent due, right? Like that would be zoomed into. That's one example of being zoomed into like the day. And then I think there's probably, there's good middle grounds there too, where you are zoomed in for a month time frame, a 2-month time frame. You're doing things that are good for you now, but also good for you in the month time frame, right? Like I'm eating well because I know that tomorrow I need that energy, right? If you're too zoomed into the hour and it's just like, I just need to get food in, and it doesn't matter, you're not even considering the week or the month, then you're probably just making whatever quick convenience food choice, right? So I think it's kind of cool because I think that someone could use that idea and kind of like try to figure out where their Zoom level is, and maybe if you're feeling like, oh, there's too much narrative here, right? Like I'm too stuck in, I'm too anxious, I'm too worried about it. Okay, zoom all the way out, like cosmic level, right? And if you're too zoomed out, nothing, you're almost nihilistic. Zoom in. Let's zoom in as far as possible. Let's try to make the most meaning out of what we're doing right in this moment, because that is truly important.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's an incredible way to look at reflection and look at what it means to bring about the best version of you, right? Because that's what we're after. And I think that's what, say his name for me, you say it better than I do. Kierkegaard, right? I think that's even in the 1800s, what he was after was like literally how to live the best version of this life. And he recognized that too much reflection was bad, no reflection was not good, and came to this understanding that living in the moment, to your point, is an incredibly powerful tool and needed to be done, but only if you actually zoomed out once in a while and brought some value to it by reflecting. And like, I can't tell you how many wrestling matches I've done where I've been in the moment the entire time and then win or lose, but it doesn't do me any good until afterwards when I go, okay, I feel good about that. That was something that happened. Okay, cool. That was it. Why do I feel good about that? Okay, let me reflect on that for a minute. All right, hey, I lost. Why did I lose? Let me reflect on that for a minute. It's only with reflection that the moment matters again. There was this catch 22 between too much and too little and too much and too little. The one thing we do know, though, is if we don't stay in the moment, if we don't use our task positive network, if we're just constantly zoomed out and constantly just thinking about the future and the past, we'll never get anything to reflect on. Like imagine or think about the days where you lay your head on the pillow and you go, what did I do today? I scrolled on Instagram a lot, played a few games of chess on my phone, I took a nap. Those aren't these rewarding days, right? The rewarding days are the days, whether they're good or bad or hard or difficult or easy, that you were zoomed in and you were in the moment. You were intentional about what your activity was. And I think that's what we were after, right? We're after being intentional. And maybe it just comes down to intentionality, right? I'm going to be intentional today about my actions and my activities. And then at the end of the night, before I put my head on the pillow, I'm going to write down and see how I did. I'm going to reflect for 5 minutes and go, okay, I could have been better here. I did great here. I really enjoyed this. And then let it go. Try again tomorrow.
Right. It's hard to be intentional if you don't actually set intentions too.
For sure.
What is it that you actually want, right? And I think it's hard. I think it's really hard because so many people are just incredibly busy. I mean, back to back to back to back to back, right? And you're doing things that maybe you don't necessarily want to do, kind of why you're doing them. Like I'm working for, I like it and it's all right and it pays the bills, but I get money and then I can survive, right? Like I think a lot of people view work that way, obviously, for obvious reasons. But if you're doing all that kind of stuff and you don't actually have time to be intentional, well, how do I want to approach this connection with my friend or my partner, right? Like, it's very easy. It's very easy to just kind of skip that and be exhausted and to not be intentional and to not think about it, right? And I think a large part of what we talk about and we work on ourselves and we try to express is that being intentional is super important, because if you don't have an aim, you don't know where you're going. You also don't have regulated emotions. They know that if you have an aim and you move closer to that aim, then you experience positive emotion. If you move further away, then you experience negative emotion. And then I suppose if you don't have anything and it's kind of aimless and there's not really like even a very broad aim, then you're probably going to feel pretty apathetic because you're not experiencing positive and negative emotion in relationship to goal, because there is no goal.
Could not agree more. I can't tell you how many times I've talked to people and you can tell a lot of their angst, a lot of their anxiety, a lot of their frustration is they don't have a goal. They don't have a purpose. They just, maybe they're in between them, right? Maybe they fulfilled one and they're like, no, that's probably giving too much credit. A lot of people just simply don't, right? Like you said, like, okay, what's my goal? Well, keep my kids alive and keep my job. That's it.
Right.
They check in. How are we doing? Okay, I'm doing great. Okay, well, what's your goal? Okay, I don't really have one. And you can tell it's almost like adding a goal. It's almost like they're overwhelmed.
Mm-hmm.
So the thought of adding a goal or an aim or a direction is like, well, I can't do that. I'm already overwhelmed. Why would I? And it's like, okay, overwhelmed doing what? Well, whatever I'm doing. Okay, well, what is it? Okay,
just too busy drowning to swim to the shore, I suppose.
Right. Yeah, and I think that's happening a lot with people these days.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, I think too, keeping in mind, I'm not necessarily, I think like super specific goals are cool, right? I think some people really do like them and they operate that way. I think that's really great. But I also think pretty broad general goals works too. I as much as obviously we talk about these things and I hope it's obvious that I, read about these kinds of topics pretty often. As much as I know about like how goals are best formed, right? Smart goals, specific, measurable, et cetera, et cetera. I don't find myself with super specific goals, and I feel like I do okay. I have broad goals, like I want to, express this value, right? I want to be a kind person, right? And again, like it's something you have to kind of think about. You kind of have to aim for that, right? I want to be a person who knows, who can help people on their, their own kind of health journey, I suppose. I want to be someone who does whatever, right? I don't think it has to be super specific if that's overwhelming to people. But yeah, like you said, I'm just gonna wake up and do my thing. Like that's not a goal. That's just you being super passive, right? You're not active. You're not the author. You're just reading.
Yeah, and it's proven. We've talked about it at length, right? This will lead to a longer life.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I can say it again. This having a purpose will lead to a longer life. And they've done all the studies, and there's a reason why a lot of people, maybe they didn't realize it, but their purpose was their job. And then they retire, then they die. I saw a study, and it was like this inverse relationship to people. It was like on the left column was the year you retired, and on the right column was the age that you died. So it was like 45, 86, 46, 86, 87. But then it got down like retire at like 65, dead at 68. Retire at 62, dead at 67.
Right.
And it was like the people that retire younger, they probably, I mean, I'm gonna extrapolate, right? They go, okay, well, I retired. Congratulations, I did something that good. I retired at 56. Okay, great. All right, I got 30 years in their head to find a purpose, make a purpose, do a purpose, live a purpose. So they do. And then what happens? They live. Versus the person that's like, oh man, I'm almost there. I'm almost going to get there. I'm going to get there. Okay, I retire at 65. Dead, 67.
All right. Unfortunately, clients who like talking to me, oh, yeah, I can't. I'm working on this thing now, Ryan. Like I'm getting my health in order because I'm 65. I'm gonna push it a couple more years. And I'm looking at them. I'm like, listen, I get it, but also, maybe we should slow down now. And fortunately, more than once, they've passed away before they even get to retire, and it's so incredibly sad. And it sucks. It sucks to to be in that sphere of witnessing that same thing. I'm glad we got here because, yeah, I think meaning and purpose too can only be developed forward. Right? I guess the essence of the problem is that we try to construct meaning and purpose out of what had happened, right? Oh, maybe, yeah. I guess my partner did this because of this reason and that reason and that narrative. That kind of makes sense to me, and maybe that is meaningful in some way, even if it's painful or beneficial, subjectively. But I think having an aim and constructing meaning and purpose forward is so much more powerful, even if it's silly. I know it comes to mind as like very silly example of constructing meaning, but there was this individual, I don't know his name, sorry, but this individual whose like entire life purpose was to be, this was maybe like, I don't know, 1960s perhaps. His entire aim in life was to naysay protein. So he would like go around and like hold up signs and protest and be like, protein sucks. Like, don't eat protein. It's so bad for you. Okay, he's not with us anymore. He probably died of protein.
Malnourished.
Right? Yeah. But it's kind of funny. Like your meaning doesn't have to mean anything to anyone, right?
Right.
Like he was probably a thrilled, super happy individual, right? And in fact, like his pursuit as what we now know is like protein is the most important nutrient. Like it's kind of silly to say that you don't need that, right? But nonetheless, there he was, like probably, and I don't know this for a fact, but probably in his glory, talking about how protein sucks, right? And that was his aim. And he would go out and he would do his thing and he would spread the word about how protein sucks. And that was his aim. That was his purpose and meaning. And it was stupid, but his. And
right.
So you don't have to judge your meaning. It could be whatever. It could be, I like to do jujitsu, and I want I want to teach jujitsu and I want to do that, or I want to help people with health, or I want to help people learn how to breathe and be mindful, right?
I want to go see all 50 states. I want to see all 32
Totally.
ballparks.
Yeah, why
these are
not?
all things that people say. And I don't want to see all 32 ballparks.
No.
Couldn't care less. But good for you.
Yeah.
Having a purpose, having a reason,
Right.
having something that you can look forward to.
Mm-hmm.
I think if there's anything we can take away from this quote, it would be it's incredibly important to live the life forward, right? And be forward thinking and looking towards something, even if this purpose or reason is silly to others. And as you reflect, remember that too much reflection doesn't do you any good. And don't be afraid to just live for a little while and reflect later.
Totally. Great. Well, if you enjoyed our discussion and found it helpful, please, give us an interaction, share all that kind of stuff, and then we will catch you next time.